Did you know this? It's pretty staggering. Something like 40% of people have issues breathing properly through their nose.
Yeah, you see it everywhere. Snoring, sleep apnea, which is serious, and just constant allergies, right?
Exactly. And the crucial thing here isn't just, a stuffy nose. It can mess with your energy, your mood.
Even how your body physically develops. It's huge.
So that's really our mission for this deep dive. Figure out why so many of us are breathing wrong and, importantly, what we can actually do about it.
And the research observation over time, it really points to one core issue. It's like our modern faces, our facial structure, just isn't quite set up right for optimal breathing anymore, a kind of mismatch.
It really does seem to boil down to space, doesn't it? Or maybe the lack of it, in our mouths specifically.
Think about our diets now. Super soft compared to, well, most of human history.
Yeah, less chewing.
A lot less chewing. And that directly impacts how our dental arch, the curve of our teeth and our sinuses develop. They just don't get the workout they used to.
So basically, our soft food is kind of shrinking our faces and making it harder to breathe through our noses.
In a way, yes. That underdevelopment means a smaller nasal airway space. It's like trying to push air through a narrower pipe. It just gets congested.
Right, like a traffic jam in your nose.
Pretty much. And this lack of space, it doesn't just make you feel stuffy.
No, it causes other problems, right? Like teeth not lining up properly.
Definitely. It's a big reason why so many people need wisdom teeth out. There's just no room.
And the sleep apnea connection is strong, too.
Very strong. That structural limitation is a major contributor.
So when the nose is blocked or just too small, the body does the obvious thing.
It compensates. You start breathing through your mouth. Seems simple, but
it bypasses all the nose's built-in features. Filtration, warming the air, humidifying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then mouth breathing itself can actually start changing your face over time.
How so?
You can see things like vertical facial growth. The face sort of elongates downwards. Maybe the cheeks look a bit dropped. The nose angle changes.
People might even look more tired around the eyes. A longer forehead appearance.
Those are some of the potential effects, yeah. And some studies suggest nearly half the population are habitual mouth breathers.
Half. Wow. Is it worse for certain groups?
It seems to be more common, or at least more noted, in women and children.
So why is it so common if it's, well, not great for us? Is it just the physical blockage?
That's a big part of it, definitely. But it can also become, a habit, especially if you start doing it as a kid while your face is still growing.
And the downsides are pretty clear. You mentioned filtration, but also dehydration.
Huge difference. You lose about 40% more water breathing through your mouth compared to your nose. The nose is designed to retain moisture.
So that dry, scratchy throat feeling when you wake up could be a sign.
Often is, yeah. Plus you're breathing in everything, dust, viruses, pollutants straight into your lungs. No filter.
Okay, so lack of space leads to mouth breathing. But there's another structural issue, right? The palate.
Ah, yes. The high palate. So because the jaw isn't stimulated enough to grow outwards and forwards.
From all that chewing we're not doing.
Right. The roof of the mouth, the palate, it tends to expand upwards instead of outwards.
Yeah.
Creates this high arch shape.
Okay, a high palate. Like a vaulted ceiling in your mouth. How does that make nasal breathing worse?
It literally pushes up into the floor of the nasal cavity. It steals space from your nose from below.
Oh, I see. So it makes the nasal passages even narrower.
Exactly. And when air flows through a narrow, constricted space, it doesn't flow smoothly. It becomes turbulent.
Turbulent flow. Okay, that sounds inefficient.
Very inefficient. Think of a smooth river versus rapids. It's harder for the air to get through, harder to pick up oxygen properly.
And I guess that turbulent air plus the congestion could lead to other issues, like infections.
Precisely. It can create an environment where bacteria thrive, more infections, sinusitis, which then leads to more congestion. It's a vicious cycle.
Wow. So our modern life, especially diet, seems to be setting us up for this. But you said this wasn't always the case, historically.
Not at all. If you look at skeletal remains from the past, it's a totally different story. These breathing issues seem relatively recent, evolutionarily speaking.
Get this insight from the research. Skulls from just, say, 1000 to 1800 AD. Their nasal openings were, on average, twice the size of ours today.
Twice the size. Just imagine how much easier breathing must have been. Much larger volume of air passing through with each breath.
Effortless, probably. And it wasn't just that period, right? Going back even further, Paleolithic skulls.
Show the same pattern. Consistent facial symmetry, really well-developed jaws and mouths, And those nice, large nasal openings, it seems like that was the norm for a very, very long time.
Like a kind of blueprint for a face that worked really well for breathing.
It suggests a much more harmonious setup between facial structure and breathing needs, yeah.
And here's the kicker, these ancient skulls, even without dentists or floss or anything.
Almost always have perfectly straight teeth.
Inc-
It really points to the idea that proper jaw development, driven by needing to chew tough foods, naturally created the space for teeth to align correctly. No braces needed.
But today, that symmetry is often gone. The research mentions how, in many modern skulls, the chin is actually set back behind the plane of the forehead.
Right, whereas for most of history, faces projected more forward.
And that forward projection helps breathing.
Definitely. A more forward face and jaw means a more open airway at the back of the throat. Less chance of obstruction, especially when you're lying down. A recessed jaw can compress that area.
So the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
why? Why did our faces change like this, leading to all these breathing problems?
Well, it's important to remember evolution isn't always progress in the way we think. Sometimes changes have, unintended side effects in a new context.
It wasn't like we chose smaller noses.
No, no. The sources really point to two massive shifts. The development of our incredibly large brains and learning to cook our food.
Ah, the brain needs a lot of energy.
A ton of energy. Cooked food was a game changer. Suddenly, we could get way more calories with much less effort spent chewing and digesting.
Which fueled the brain growth.
Exactly. But the flip side was less chewing meant less stimulus for that robust jaw and facial growth.
And that's how we ended up with our more prominent noses, potentially, a trade-off.
That seems to be part of the story, yeah. Less broad jaw development might have contributed to the nose becoming more prominent vertically. And of course, nose shape also adapted to climate.
Right, like longer, thinner noses in cold, dry places to warm the air.
And flatter, wider noses in hot, humid climates. Fascinating stuff.
Okay, so we get that mouth breathing isn't ideal, but what are the actual measurable consequences beyond the dry mouth?
This is where it gets really interesting looking at the empirical evidence. Studies show that even just a few days of forced mouth breathing can have noticeable effects.
Like what? What did they measure?
Things like increased blood pressure. Also, a decrease in heart rate variability, HRV.
HRV, that's a marker of stress resilience, right? Lower isn't good.
Generally, no. It suggests the body is under more strain. They also saw increases in body temperature and heart rate. Basically, physiological signs of stress.
Wow. So just switching how you breathe can actually put your body into a stress state.
It appears so. And remember the moisture thing. Losing 40% more water, that feeling of being thirsty, that scratchy throat when you wake up, very often a direct result of mouth breathing all night.
Makes total sense. And it sounds like it can become a negative loop. Mouth breathing makes your nose more congested, which makes you mouth breathe more.
It absolutely can be a vicious cycle, but, and this is important, it's a cycle you can break.
How?
By consciously forcing yourself to breathe through your nose, even if it feels a bit stuffy at first.
Yeah.
Over weeks, you actually strengthen the tissues and pathways, retrain your body. You can reclaim nasal breathing.
That's really positive. And this isn't just a human thing, is it? I remember reading about animal studies. Rats.
Yes, fascinating, if a bit grim for the rats. They temporarily blocked their noses, forcing mouth breathing.
And what happened?
They found impaired neuron development in the brain. And cognitively, these mouth-breathing rats took about twice as long to navigate a maze compared to the nasal-breathing control group.
Whoa. So mouth breathing could actually impact brain function.
The potential implication for humans is that mouth breathing might reduce oxygen supply to the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain heavily involved in attention, decision-making, impulse control.
So maybe a link to things like attention deficits.
It's an area being researched. Reduced oxygen to that critical brain area certainly isn't ideal for focus and executive function.
Okay, this is all incredibly powerful. Now, shifting gears slightly, the sources talk about nasal cycles. What's that about?
Right, this is pretty cool. Your nose doesn't just work symmetrically. The airflow through each nostril actually changes throughout the day in a cycle.
So I'm not always breathing equally through both sides.
Almost certainly not. Right now, chances are one nostril is doing most of the work. You can even test it, hold a cool mirror under your nose, see which side fogs more.
Huh, okay, I'll try that later. So what causes this switching?
It's down to erectile tissue inside your nose.
Wait, erectile tissue? Like other places?
Exactly like that, biologically speaking. This tissue can swell and shrink rhythmically, even without any sexual stimulation. When it swells in one nostril, it restricts airflow there, so the other side opens up more. It alternates.
That is a wild biological fact I did not know.
Isn't it? And studies have even linked it to things like pheromones. Exposure to certain scents caused changes in this tissue swelling and nasal resistance in study participants.
Wow. So if one side feels stuffy, it might just be this normal cycle, or maybe illness.
It could be either.
Yeah.
The tissue definitely swells more when you have allergies, a cold, or other imbalances. But often that feeling of one side being clearer than the other is just the natural cycle happening.
Is there any significance to which side is dominant? I've heard theories.
There are theories linking it to the nervous system. Some suggest right nostril dominance might activate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, more alert state.
And left nostril, the parasympathetic, rest and digest.
That's the hypothesis. The evidence isn't fully conclusive yet, but it's an intriguing idea that how we breathe might influence our brain state side to side.
So ideally, we'd want balanced breathing through both nostrils.
It's generally seen as the goal, yeah. Many breathing practices, like in yoga, aim specifically to create that balance. And it's not a new idea either.
No.
The importance of the nose in breathing was written about in the Ebers Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text from over 3,500 years ago. They knew the nose was crucial.
3,500 years. Amazing. Okay, let's talk long-term. Longevity. Is there a connection between breathing and how long we live?
There seems to be, yes. Major long-term studies, like the Framingham Heart Study, found a strong correlation between lung capacity, specifically total lung capacity, how much air your lungs can hold, and lifespan.
So basically, bigger, more efficient lungs are linked to living longer.
The data points that way. Improving your breathing capacity could genuinely contribute to a longer, healthier life.
That's pretty motivating. There's that quote in the sources from George Catlin.
Ah, yes. Observing Native American practices, he called nasal breathing the great secret of life.
High praise.
Maybe sounds dramatic, but when you think about oxygen delivery to every single cell, removing waste, breathing is fundamental to life and health. It's not really an exaggeration.
Okay, totally convinced. Nasal breathing is paramount. So the practical part, how do we actually train ourselves to do it better?
Right, the how-to. First, just realizing how we normally breathe. Most of us, when relaxed, take in maybe half a liter of air per breath. That's called tidal volume.
Half a liter.
But our total lung capacity, what our lungs can hold, is closer to 6 liters.
6. So we're usually using what? Less than 10% of our potential?
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Just shallow, almost unconscious breathing. The key is to engage the diaphragm more.
The big muscle under the lung.
Exactly. That dome-shaped muscle. It should be doing most of the work. So diaphragmatic breathing, or belly breathing, is step 1.
How do you practice that?
Easiest way to start is lying down. Put one hand on your chest, one on your belly. When you inhale, focus on making the hand on your belly rise. The hand on your chest should stay relatively still.
Okay, visualize that. Lie down, inhale, belly pushes hand up, chest is quiet. Got it.
Once that feels natural, you can add a bit of resistance. Put a book on your abdomen. Feel yourself lifting it with the inhale.
Okay, a book. Seems manageable.
Some advanced practitioners, like Qigong masters, apparently trained with serious weight up to 25 kilos.
25 wow. Okay, maybe I'll stick with the book for a while. What about the exhale? Is that important too?
Hugely important. We often neglect the exhale. The goal here is to lengthen it consciously.
Wow. Just breathe out for longer.
Yeah, try this. Inhale normally, then exhale slowly, steadily, maybe counting to 10 in your head. Really empty the lungs gently.
Okay, slow count to 10 on the way out. What does doing that regularly achieve?
Several things. First, it's great for increasing that heart rate variability, the HRV we talked about, better stress resilience, maybe even willpower.
Better HRV. Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
It increases your tidal volume. You start exchanging more air with each breath, getting oxygen in and CO2 out more efficiently. And over time, it can actually increase your total lung capacity.
Ah, that makes sense. It's why singers and wind instrument players focus so much on breath control, especially long exhales. They're training exactly this.
Precisely. Now, let's loop back quickly to the face shape thing. Remember those well-developed jaws in historical skulls?
Yeah, from chewing tougher food.
Right. That chewing action stimulated everything to grow properly. Our modern soft diets just don't provide that.
So how did we be chewing more?
It could potentially help, especially earlier in life, but even as adults. Chewing sugar-free gum more often, maybe? Or some people use specific jaw exerciser devices.
Like little workout tools for your jaw?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Just be as careful if you have any TMJ or jaw joint issues already, obviously.
Good point. What about allergies? They block the nose for so many people.
True. Some airborne allergies are hard to avoid, but it's worth thinking about digestive triggers, too.
Like food sensitivities.
Yeah. Some people find, for example, that dairy makes their nasal congestion worse. It's individual, but if you suspect a food connection, maybe try eliminating it for a bit and see if your nasal breathing improves.
Huh. So what you eat could directly impact your nose congestion, the gut-lung connection again.
It's all connected. We know gut health influences the immune system. A healthier gut flora might help regulate immune responses, potentially lessening allergy symptoms for some. Worth considering.
Okay, so deeper breaths using the diaphragm, longer exhales, maybe more chewing. Watch for food triggers. What's the ideal daily breathing pattern to aim for, just generally?
The overall aim is usually longer, deeper breaths, which naturally leads to fewer breaths per minute. This helps calm the nervous system.
Slower breathing equals calmer state.
Generally, yes. A common target you hear in breathing practices is aiming for an inhale of about 5.5 seconds and an exhale of about 5.5 seconds.
5.5 in, 5.5 out. That definitely sounds slower than my usual pace.
It probably is for most of us in this busy world. But practicing that rhythm, even for just a few minutes a day, can make a real difference to your stress levels and overall physiological balance.
And the best part is these exercises are free, right?
Yeah.
No equipment needed, no real downsides.
Exactly. It's incredibly accessible yet profoundly effective.
What about for people dealing with, say, high anxiety? Any specific breathing tip there?
Yes, for anxiety, sometimes practicing those deep breaths, but adding a short pause, a brief breath hold after the inhale or exhale, can be helpful.
A breath hold. Why?
It helps gently train your brain to become more tolerant of slightly higher CO2 levels in the blood. Often, anxiety can be triggered by the brain sensing rising CO2 and misinterpreting it as suffocation or danger, the air hunger feeling.
So it's like desensitizing that panic button related to CO2.
That's a good way to put it. You teach the system it's okay, it doesn't need to trigger distress so easily.
Fascinating. It really comes back to this core idea, doesn't it? That how we breathe is fundamental, often overlooked, but holds immense power for our health.
Absolutely. Correct breathing supports basically everything. Physical health, mental clarity, emotional regulation. It's foundational.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the message seems really clear. Pay attention to your breathing, prioritize breathing through your nose.
And actively practice. Try the diaphragmatic breathing, work on those longer exhales. It can make a tangible difference in how you feel day to day.
We really encourage you, the listener, to give some of these techniques a try. Just notice your breath. Maybe try that 5.5-second inhale-exhale for a few minutes.
See how it feels. It costs nothing to experiment.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. If something as basic, as automatic as breathing can have such a profound impact when we pay conscious attention to it, what other seemingly small everyday aspects of our modern lives might also hold hidden keys to better health and well-being if we just took a closer look?
That's definitely something worth pondering, something to breathe on.